The MCP connector on Higgsfield is insane. I'm like genuinely blown away by this thing. Getting Claude to talk to Higgsfield is like having an expert in everything when it comes to creating your images, your videos, what models to select, how to get the aesthetics right. It is so cool. My mind is blown. I ran into some trouble with it, some snags earlier on, and so I'm going to share with you what not to do and what to do to get this thing to work. But I think it's so cool, and I can't wait to share it with you. Let's dig in. What does MCP even mean? That's my first question. Okay, Google, what does MCP mean? Model Context Protocol. Okay. The Model Context Protocol, which came out and was introduced by Anthropic back in 2024, is now integrated into Higgsfield. For those who don't know, Higgsfield is a marketplace. They have a bunch of different models that make videos, images, they have some audio stuff, and they have all these different tools that allow you to connect into them. And they're sort of building a world of cinematic levers, tools, and features for us creators. So if you look here, we have all of the image generation models, all of the video generation models, and they keep adding to this list. It just keeps growing. And they just added this MCP and CLI integrations. So if you click on this, turn Claude, OpenClaw into a creative engine and so on, right? So you can connect into a bunch of stuff. In this case, we're going to do the MCP one. And to get it to work in Claude, all you have to do here is just grab this URL here. So we'll copy that. Then we go over to Claude. Inside Claude, all you have to do to connect it is you go over to this customize little toolkit here, tool chest. Then you go to connectors, and then you go to this little plus button, and then you go add custom connector, and you add in your URL there, and then you save it. So you connect it here, name it, and then you give it some permissions in another tab when it pops up. You can do this both in the desktop client or in the browser. In this case, I'm using the browser. Once it's connected, you'll get this shot here where it shows all of the things it can do, and it gives you some permissions. And right now it sort of defaults to everything is approved, except for down here. But you can customize this. So for example, if you're really concerned about your credits, you might want to have it ask every time it wants to generate something, so it's not just going rogue, which it'll do. It'll be like, I got an idea for you. Let me generate like 500 credits worth of stuff. So you might want it to ask. But in this experiment, we'll just leave it on. Once that's connected, you can start a chat. So let's start a new chat. And here's where I made my first mistake. So this little guy down here allows you to use a voice mode where you talk at it. The voice mode, for whatever reason, at least right now tonight here in May 2026, it does not like working with the Higgsfield connector. So instead, I would recommend typing, or I use my Mac. And so let me just show you what I did here. I want to create an anime stylistic image of an axolotl swimming in a creek, and I want it to look like it's been hand-drawn. Use the Higgs connector to generate the image, and let's use Seedream 4.5 to make the image. All right, there's a few little typos. I'll just go and fix that. But I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Now it's looking for the models, and you can see what it's doing here. And if you click these little results, you can actually go into the query and see like exactly what it's doing. And then even within the image here, it'll show you kind of like the prompt it's using. This is great for learning prompts because I didn't write this prompt. I just kind of said what I wanted to do. But you can go in here and look like, okay, say it's like watercolor-like textures. Maybe I don't want it to be watercolor color textures. I can go in and say, hey, actually you said watercolor, let's remove that. And there you go. So there's my little axolotl. And now what's cool about this is I can start having a conversation with Claude. So let's move on to the next shot. Now I want the axolotl to emerge from the riverbed as a bipedal warrior with muscles holding a battle axe. It has evolved from its original state. Keep it in the same anime style. And let's use the Higgs connector and Seedream 4.5 again to make this image. Now go ahead and do that. Now it's going to start doing that. And there's another thing here to think about. So like, I'm not giving it any information about the settings of the image. So it's coming out 16:9, which is great. That's what I wanted. But if I didn't want it to be that, I'd have to go and say, hey, I want it to be a vertical image, 9:16, or I want it to be a square. See, look, now because of that, it just randomly selected 9:16. You kind of have to be a little specific when you talk to it. So we'll let this generate, and I'm just going to correct it. I'm going to say, okay, do the same exact image, but I want it to be 16:9, just like the one before. And let's make sure that it's pink and has the same aesthetic qualities as the first image. So you're just having this conversation back and forth between Claude, and then Claude is doing a lot of the lifting for you and going back to Higgsfield. This is super cool. When you do this inside of Higgsfield or any sort of marketplace where you're dealing with the models, it can be pretty like tedious to just sort of like, okay, wait, I gotta move this a little bit more, I gotta move that a little more, this doesn't look right. So let's see how it like corrected this image, right? This, he's wearing a tie and a jacket. Maybe that's what it thought, anime. Fine, okay, so there's our image. I personally would have not put pants on the legs. If I really wanted to dial this in, I would dial it in much different. But let's go with that. So there's image 1, there's image 2, okay? Now, what I'm gonna say, okay, now I want to see over the shoulder of this character, looking towards the front of the character, and we see a lizard warrior holding a large staff, ready to fight. Keep the aesthetic and style the same, and let's use the Higgs connector to make this with Dream 4.5 and a 16:9 aspect ratio. Let's see what it does. You can also be kind of sloppy because like LLMs will know if there's typos and issues. It's just going to kind of fix it. So there it goes. My goal here is I'm basically storyboarding. And so this is what's kind of cool. If you have your storyboards, you could literally just load the pictures into Claude and say, here, this is my first frame, this is my second frame, this is my third frame, fourth frame. Take all these frames and make them in this style, and it'll just automatically do it. Okay, so there's the over the shoulder. Great. Now I'm gonna say, now I wanna see a shot where the axolotl is standing victorious over the fallen villain with its foot on the villain's back, having been defeated, and holding up its axe towards the sky and looking up in victory. Keep the style the same, the aesthetic the same, the environment the same, and let's continue with the Higgs connector in Dream 4.5. Pretty fun. The one thing I will say is that it's also risky doing it this way because you don't, unless you don't really care about how much credits you're spending. It's not like in Higgsfield where you see your credit ticker sort of like going down. Here you can just, wait, how many credits did I spend? Also, if you give Claude free reign, it's just going to use whatever models it wants. So if it wants to use like, Seedance 2 on everything, well, your videos are going to be very expensive. So just be mindful of that when you're generating these things so that, there it is. Cool. All right. So now, okay, great. Now what I'd like to do is I would like to take the first frame through to this last frame, with the exception of the one that we corrected earlier that was a vertical image. Let's use all of the ones that are 16:9, and let's make a video telling the story of an axolotl that has evolved from a cute axolotl into a warrior axolotl, and then we rotate around and see the villain. There's a quick fight, and then the Axolotl Warrior stands victorious. And let's use whatever you think is the best video model to do this with these images, and use the Higgs connector. Whatever. I'm just having like a random conversation. Obviously, if you had I'm just making this up on the spot, but if you had like a real story in mind, where you're like, I got these beats, I've got these storyboards, pretty cool, right? So it's walking its logic here. I'll go with Seedance too, right? The recommendation. And what it's done here is, it looks like it just uploaded one image as the reference. I wonder why. Let's see what it does. Oh, wait, it's making, okay. So in this case, probably because it's a longer video, it's making 4 videos. Yeah. So it did a 4 video output and it's generating these. And then what I'm going to do when this is done is I'm just going to ask it to stitch it all together into one, and it will do it because it's awesome. So while that stuff generates, I want to talk about what's happening on the back end here. So if you go into Higgsfield, let's go back over here, and you go to your image section, and let's reload it. You're going to see all the images that are being pushed by Claude. So here's everything we just did, right? So you can see what's going on. If you want to bounce back and forth, you want to check your credits and see what you got, you can go up here and look. It's depleted, whatever it is. And then that's one way of tracking it. And you can also look in your videos, and I probably see this for videos, right? For videos, it just randomly grabbed 720 quality, 5-second videos, right? So you can kind of see what's going on. And then you can go back to Claude and have your conversation. And what's cool also about Claude is if there are specific things you don't like, again, you just have the conversation with Claude and you say, hey, the way it did this thing in that bit didn't work. Can we rework the last 3 seconds or between 7 and 10 seconds? You could do that. And I could also specify to Claude, I don't want to do 4 different videos. I want this to be one generation. So it's one single shot that is like a tracking shot. And I did that earlier. So here's an example of what that looked like. All right, looks like we got all of our videos. Let's take a look here. Cool. Looks like anime. And then, right? Pretty cool. And then, okay. So it made those, great. It kind of made them more as pre-visualization for the scene. So I'm going to say that. I'm going to say, okay, these look good, but it kind of feels like a previs. I want to see a full action shot where the axolotl transforms from a baby axolotl into this evolution of a warrior, and then immediately goes into a fight, and it's all one seamless scene. Can you figure out how to do that and use the Higgs connector? It's got figured out. Great idea. Let me think. It's going to use Cling. Interesting. I don't know why. I would have used Seedance, but maybe Cling is what's up. So anyway, you get the point. Let's let this generate. We'll take a look here in a second. Yeah, so if I wanted to, I could go back and we're already here. We're so far in. We might as well just do it. Let's just do it. All right. Okay, Cling did not do the best job at the task. What I'd like for you to do is I want you to take all of the 16:9 aspect ratio photos, load them into Seedance 2.0, and let's get Seedance 2.0 to do this shot. Are you all at the point where you're counting your credits like it's currency? Okay, it's doing it. Seedance's victory. Duh. Okay. What do you think? Are you going to use the MCP connector? tell me your thoughts. Leave me some hacks. I'm learning this stuff. I'd love to know how you're using it. And if you like my videos, please subscribe. I got a ton more things coming out. I'm always like testing stuff every single night. I'm like in these tools, and I plan to just keep bringing you all this information as openly as possible. So hit the subscribe button, and I will see you on the next one. Thank you for watching.